Most brands don't lose because they're inferior. They lose because they're indistinguishable. I'm Kelly Callahan Poe, host of the Marketing Moms podcast. Today's episode is called How to Win When You're Outspent, Outscaled, and Overlooked with John Gumas. John is the president of Commit Agency, which he founded in 1984 as Gumas Advertising in San Francisco before it merged with Commit Agency in 2025. John is recognized as one of the country's foremost authorities on challenger brand marketing as the author of the book with the same name and Marketing Smart. He's an adjunct professor in branding and advertising and a sought-off speaker. For 4 decades, Johns has helped brands that are outspent, out-resourced, and outnumbered to find the one thing that makes them impossible to ignore. His clients have included SanDisk, HP, Mattel, Yonex, and the San Francisco Giants Community Fund. Welcome, John.
Hi, Kelly. So great to be here. Thank you.
We can also see that you're a huge fan of the San Francisco Giants right behind you, correct?
Yeah, I think that's a good guess.
All signed baseballs?
They are all signed, every single one of them.
Excellent. Great background. Well, John, you've spent 40 years watching brands try to outspend their competitors. What's the one mistake you see over and over again that keeps them getting stuck?
Well, that's I'd say the biggest mistake is assuming that you know what your customers and your prospective new customers really want, and assuming why they choose you over your competitor. That's the most consistent thing that we see, and specifically when it comes to your brand messaging, what you say. You don't want to confuse visibility with differentiation, or confuse the need to spend more money on social, on digital, on conventional media, etc., to generate more results, right? When just taking the time to dig a little deeper to develop your true differentiation and understanding what that differentiating brand messaging and really needs to say, right? The real why the market chooses to do business with you versus your competitors. We refer to that as the truth. And most brands, they believe if they spend more, they'll win more. But I would strongly argue that if your message, your brand, your positioning doesn't resonate or differentiate, and it sounds like everyone else's message in your category, all you're doing is amplifying sameness at best. So you're not building preference, right? You're funding status quo, and that's typically where challenger brands fail. That's the one mistake we see on a regular basis. And the only one, when you are building status quo, the only brand that wins that game is the one spending the most money. And we all know challenger brands are not that brand. The challenger brands need to understand that they need to be relevant and they need to be different. You don't win by being louder, right? You win by being meaningfully different, by outthinking, not outspending. And what that difference, right, has to be rooted in data. It has to be relevant. It has to be true that to what you say, and it has to be something that your competitors are unwilling and unable to claim. So you've got to own something. And that's the one thing that challenger brands don't always understand. They think the safe route, the safe message, the safe position is the way to go. But we argue it's the opposite.
So, like most agencies, you have a discovery process that includes data. Can you walk us through what your process is, how it's different, and how you handle your discovery and your research to dig into some of those insights? And is it qualitative research? Is it focus groups? What are the things that you do?
Sure, absolutely. And the discovery in the challenger brand process, and I say even in almost every marketing process, is the most critical point of the process, because it is going to point you in the right direction or it's going to point you in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And most discovery processes are designed to validate, right? And typically they kind of validate what a client already believes. Ours, though, the challenger brand marketing process discovery is designed to challenge that whole theory. It isn't about extracting inputs, right? It's about uncovering the truth. And that is a that is a major point that I really want to emphasize. It's uncovering the truth, the real reason why your best customers choose you over your competition and why they love you. There's something at the core of that. And what we have to do as challenger brand marketers is extract that. So what we're looking for is the gap between what the category says, what your competitors are saying, right? What your customer truly feels, why they love you, and what your brand can credibly own and ultimately defend from anybody. That's where you want to get to. So that's where the breakthrough positioning and your true messaging lives, right there. It does not live in consensus, right? It lives in contrast. Right? What do you do that nobody else can do, and what can you own? But getting to that point, right, is where I think most challenger brands get off track, because it's a little unnatural to get there. It's so easy to kind of follow the easy track, right? This is the most critical part, though, right, of the challenger brand's journey, because it's so easy to settle for the obvious, so easy to settle, for what seems to be obvious. But the obvious is really, it's not good enough for challenger brands. Challenger brands have to dig a little deeper. They have to go beyond that, right? They really need to approach this differently. That's usually the hard part for challenger brands, is taking a different approach. So what they ultimately have to do is uncover the real reason why, and the real reason behind why your customers, and just as importantly, Kelly, your prospective new customers, why would they choose you over your competition? Because think about that. Your prospective new customers have a lot of choices, right? You gotta convince them that you're different than all those choices. So we call that, the truth. That's the real reason why. And the truth lives in every single challenger brand. It lives inside of you. Our job as an agency is to extract that uniqueness, right? To pull it out, because it exists. And then to articulate that in a very powerful brand messaging that you own, that is unique to you, and you can defend that from anyone. And this truth, right, really comes from three critical data points. First is what we call external. It's your best customers. We want to speak to your best customers. And what we want to find out is why they love you. What is it about you that they love you? Why did they pick you over the competition? And we go through a very, very unique and very different questioning process. The questions have been vetted over 40 years to really extract, they're not obvious questions at all, to extract from your customers the real reason why. So the first group is your customers. We refer to external. The next group is the internal group, which would be our clients, key folks within the organization. The key stakeholders. It could be CEO, CMO, COO, marketing director, et cetera, et cetera. So essentially those folks inside the company who understand the essence of the brand. Our job as challenger brand marketers is not to create a brand that they are not. Our job is to extract the brand that lives inside of them. And we take that data, we couple that with what their best customers are saying, and we build that together. And that's where at the heart of where the message lives. But there's one more piece that we add to this, and that is we do a deep dive on the competitors. We're not looking at what products they sell or what they pay for them or what their pricing is or distribution channels. What we're looking at is their messaging as well. How are they selling the same people we're trying to sell? So we extract that, because at the end of the day, if we have competitors that are spending more than us, we have to be a little different. We have to have a message that's more powerful than theirs, or we need to own a niche in that market. So those 3 points of contact are where we get our data. External, our customers; internal, the key stakeholders; and external, the competitors. And that's where this messaging, that's where this lives.
So what are you doing for qualitative research?
Well, so I'd say answer that in a different way, then I'll get to the answer. It's, first of all, research, qualitative research typically gives you answers to the questions you ask, right? But discovery, and this is the difference between research and discovery. Discovery helps you realize you've been asking the wrong questions all along. So discovery tends to confirm patterns, right? It tells us what people say. It tells us, what they click. It tells us, what they buy. It gives you real insight that you need to develop powerful branding, right? And powerful marketing campaigns. But direction comes from having a true understanding, right, of why those patterns exist, and a true understanding of what emotion is behind all of those decisions, because that's key. So if you want to just, walk out with charts, right, you've got research. But if you want to walk out with conviction, now you've got real insight, right? Insight that changes what you're willing to say, and sometimes, just more importantly, what you should not say. Now that's true discovery, and that's the difference. So this is kind of where powerful marketing programs get their start. It's not about how much marketing dollars you spend, but it's always about what you say, and it's about that message that resonates and connects with your audience, and how that differentiates your brand from the competition. So the decision to choose you is an easy one. That's challenger brand marketing discovery. That's what it's all about, and that's why it generates very good marketing results. But again, it's asking the right questions. The questions are not as obvious as you think. So that's really the difference for us, in the data discovery and the data extraction.
In terms of uncovering emotional drivers, how are you uncovering this data?
We don't believe in focus groups, and I'll tell you why in a second. What we believe is on one-on-one, confidential telephone conversations. And the reason for that is in a written survey, it's so easy for the respondent to just check the box, give you the easy answer. And the easy answer may not be, and typically is not, the real reason why they choose you. In fact, many cases, they can't articulate quickly the real reason. So it's up to us to extract that. So that's why for messaging, we tend to avoid written surveys. We also tend to avoid focus groups, because we've all been in focus groups, and you've always got that one or two, one person or two person that really kind of dominate and influence everybody else. The problem with those two forms of data collection is they don't always give you what you need to know. They don't always give you the real essence behind why somebody chooses your company. As a result, and this is where the danger lies, as a result, you go down the wrong path with your marketing and your messaging and your brand and your positioning based on information that is not we refer to as the truth. So what we like to do, and we extract this by talking to customers one-on-one on the telephone. And the reason we do it on the telephone is they can't look you in the eye. They don't hear you in any other way. That you get, you get that real insight into what you're doing. So that's how we go about doing that.
We've always talked about advertising as being a combination of art and science, right? And so when you go through this process, you may find 2-3 different avenues that may make sense for a client or a brand to go down, right? And then, of course, you're taking all of the competitive information and you're throwing that up on your war room or on a slide so you can see what is everyone doing now? What is my brand doing now? And if I took XYZ approach, does it differentiate me? Because right now, as you probably see in most of these cases, they all do look the same. So making sure that particular new positioning that you come up with is distinguishable is point one, but also does it fit for the brand? And a lot of times it's selling it in to get the client to take that leap, right? Can be one of the biggest challenges. So what happens when you uncover a truth that contradicts what leadership has believed for years? Or how do you handle the politics of kind of maneuvering that? I've been in many situations where clients loved a particular position, but it's not backed by research. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that you're in the business, you get it. That's I want to say the kiss of death, all right? But that is unfortunate, because the worst thing any marketer or any company or any individual within a position of influence or decision making in a company, if they make decisions based on personal feeling, it it's dangerous. So to answer your question, right, in terms of leadership's belief and how do you handle the politics, to me, that's the moment where strategy either lives or dies. And everything that we do needs to be based on data, which is driving the strategy. It's not based on what I think, what I assume, or somebody in the company thinks or assume. The
Yes.
biggest mistake we see is that if you put in front of any sentence, I think this is what we should say, I think this is what we should do, I think this is what our customers want, that is the most dangerous position any company can have, because you want to get to the point where you've gathered the data correctly, so you can get to the point where you can say, I know this is exactly what we have to say. I know this is exactly what our customers need to hear. I know this is exactly what differentiates us from our competition. I know. Because there's this interesting phenomena that happens with humans is if you're involved in a company day in and day out, it's almost impossible to step outside of that company and look at it from the outside in, like a prospective new customer would. It's impossible. So as a result, you create these assumptions in your mind that you know what those customers need. And on a side note, we believe all your marketing activities should be, your external marketing should be to people who have never heard of your company before. So how do you explain that to somebody in 7 seconds or less? That has to be kind of the ultimate challenge, right? A goal. So it's impossible for most folks within a company to do that. Yet they truly believe they know. So again, that's where it lives or dies. So you can't just be present, right? Or you just can't present the truth, or you have to make it undeniable. And that's what the Challenger brand process does. During that process, what we do is we like to include the leaders in the discovery process so they can hear it for themselves, they can see it for themselves, they can feel it for themselves, so they see where this is going. If they do that, they'll understand that this is strategic, it's data driven, and it's not an emotional exercise. It's the emotion that really, kind of to your question, right, that throws this all in whack. It's you got to eliminate the emotional part of this. So by eliminating that or any personal bias, right, from the process, you get closer to where you want to go. You also need to let them know that this was built on data collection and fact and not assumption or guessing. And sometimes, you know what, to your point, sometimes you get some folks that just don't believe that. And so I would argue anyone who argues the data, you know what, something might sound harsh, but almost deserves what they get, because you can't argue the data. The data doesn't lie. Challenger brands win because they're willing to confront uncomfortable truths that their competitors typically avoid. So if leadership can embrace that, it really, truly becomes a competitive advantage. And it should not be a political problem. So for the record, right, we do rarely encounter this sort of contradiction through our discovery process because it's so thorough and the data is so powerful. It's very hard to disagree with the findings. So that sort of brand position and messaging, when the data is done correctly, almost writes itself, and it becomes very logical, and everyone kind of looks at the end when they see the messaging. They kind of go, of course, that's it, because it's so logical.
Got it. Well, a huge component of that is also trust in that partnership and trust in that relationship with that client. And have you built that trust where they're willing to hear and listen to what you have to say, and that you are that trusted advisor that they can go to, right?
Of course, absolutely. And you know that, and collecting the data like that and showing them how you do it, and also they're involved in the process, so they see the process, they feel, they've experienced the process, they've experienced the process that their customers have gone through. And one a little side note: so when we go through our interviewing process, and we speak to our clients, customers, and we speak to our clients, Kelly, 100% of the time, not 99, not 98, but 100% of the time, what our clients think that their customers need to hear from them is not what their customers tell us. 100% of the time. That during this process is the first aha moment for our clients. to your question, do they choose to believe what their customers are saying or not? And like I said, almost all the time, that's usually not, they always do because the facts are so clear.
But we've all been in that position where we present this beautifully crafted, backed by research positioning statement that everyone's agreed on, and then it goes nowhere. And so, what's broken in the way that both agencies and clients approach positioning work? Is it really a part of this process and looking at all of these three elements?
So, most positioning work is designed to get agreement, not create impact. So you kind of end up with language that's carefully worded, broadly acceptable, and to be honest, completely forgettable. And your client allows us to do our job. So we're only as good as our clients allow us to be. So it's up to us to educate our clients on the process. So if someone disagrees with it, right? No one rallies around it either. Great positioning needs to feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? It should force choices. It should make it clear who you're not as much as who you are. So if anyone loves it immediately, it's probably too safe. And it's a process of keeping the client involved. And it's up to the agency to defend the approach and deliver to the client a brand position, a brand messaging strategy that will generate results. Not one that's safe and forgettable, right? Great branding, as you know, great positioning should always deliver messaging that only you can say, right? And you can defend that messaging, you can defend that position from anyone in the marketplace for years to come. We like to call that is becoming famous for something. And so clients who are truly trying to make a difference and understand the process, because we as agency folks and as marketing experts and leaders have to prepare our clients for the process and explain to them why we're doing what we're doing and explain to them what we're trying to get and include them in that process. And if you do that, most of the time, the lion's share of the time, the client is on board and gets it and applauds the results because they see it. And and sometimes this is the reality of our business, right? And because we're only as good as our clients allow us to be. You just get those clients that just don't buy in. Luckily, that's very, very rare, but it certainly has happened over the years. And at that point, you need to make the choice as an agency. Do you want to be part of something that you feel may not achieve its full results, or do you want not to be part of that?
Absolutely. Can you give us an example in the discovery process that you've managed with different clients, a moment where discovery completely changed the direction of a campaign, or something that a client that you've worked on that you might be able to share?
Let's talk about the financial industry.
Okay.
The financial industry is, we do a lot of work in the financial industry. That's banks, that's credit unions, other, fintechs, other types of organizations within that industry. And the truth about the financial industry, and it's many other industries, is if you think about it, right, they all sell the same product and the same services, right? They're all regulated, so they all have the same car loans. They all have the same home refis. They all have the same home loans. They all sell the same thing. But if you think about it, they sell products, and all they're doing is selling things the same thing as their competitors. As a result, they're just promoting sameness. They're promoting themselves and digging this hole as a commodity. Yeah. That is the most dangerous thing. And it's not, again, I'm using the financial industry, but this works in a lot of industries. So this could be almost any industry. So they typically, right, believe that their true advantage and their true differentiator are, things like we have better rates, we have better service, we have better people. Well, doesn't every financial institution think they have better rates? Well, first of all, their rates are all regulated. So yeah. They may not have better rates or better service or better people. So the only one that wins that competition is the one that's going to spend the most money, right? In the world of, let's say, a credit union or a community bank, when you're up against the big, Chase and Bank of America, who spend billions and billions of dollars, guess who's going to win that fight? Typically, what they don't realize that the only unique feature they have is their brand, not their products, but their brand. So typically, when we take these clients through the discovery process, right, we're able to uncover something much, much deeper than their products. And typically, right, the real driver for their customers, again, isn't rates. Their customers usually want to be part of an organization that they can trust, they can believe in, right? An organization that supports their community, supports their value. So they're not at the heart of this. They're not just looking for a home loan, a car loan, but they're looking for a brand they can be part of with a mission they believe in. And most financial institutions and most brands in general are kind of scared to go down this route. So when it comes to creating their messaging, right, it wasn't just invented out of thin air. It was discovered based on a truth, all right, a truth that truly differentiated them and a truth that resonated with the market because the market told us, we asked the questions. And typically it just reframes them and it shows up through their performance. So going about that and understanding, if you're in a category that you're selling very, very similar products, right? This process, this approach shifts everything. So instead of competing on features, we like to position these clients, financial clients in this case, around believing in a movement, the good things the brand does for the community, how it helps people with education, making their lives better. So this is not about another car loan. It's not about another home loan. It's not about another home refi. This is about uncovering what their customers really want. And by doing that, we're able to adjust their marketing strategy to promote the benefits of the brand. So by promoting the benefits of the brand, this results in their products being sold better than ever. And the other thing that comes from this is when you sell product, again, using this example, the financial industry, you're selling a car loan for a fourth of a point less for this week. What you typically get are transactional customers that are going to go away. But if you convince and you position your brand and you message your brand based on this movement, right? What you do at your brand, what makes you different. Now your customers are not transactional. They're long-term. They believe in you. So those customers are going to buy multiple products from you versus the single product that a transactional customer will. And those customers will be with you a long time. Those customers will refer their family members, their friends to you, unlike the other approach. So it has this huge domino effect that if you fall into that product marketing trap in an industry of sameness, you will have a hard time growing because all you're doing is just promoting yourself as a commodity and digging that hole deeper and deeper and deeper.
We touched on this a little bit, but oftentimes marketers inherit a brand positioning that they didn't build or frankly don't agree with. And so what is your process for figuring out whether to evolve what exists or how to recommend to them that perhaps it needs to be blown apart?
Yeah. And that, I think that's the hardest dilemma for every new marketing director coming into a company.
Yeah.
Right. And so my advice is don't assume it's right just because it currently exists. We ask our clients a basic question. And, and that question, or a couple of questions is, how is that current marketing program working? How's your program working? Is it working or not? Are you surpassing your goals and KPIs? Not just meeting them. Meeting them to us is kind of a basic expectation, but it's surpassing them. Are you surpassing your goals? Are you surpassing your KPIs? If the answer is yes, then maybe, all right, the current brand position is in good shape, right? You got to come, that if it's good, it's good. You got to acknowledge that. But if the answer is no, and you're not surpassing your goals, you're not surpassing your KPIs, and your company is not growing, or your brand differentiation is not obvious in the market, then maybe now it's time to reevaluate. And that's your justification to reevaluate. So another approach is to pressure test it, right? Does it differentiate you from your competition, right? If you were to take your three, four, five main competitors, put them on a wall, write the position for each one of them, where do you stand? Where do you stand? Are you different? Are you like everyone else? If you're not different than your competitors, right? Then you got to look at that and ask yourself why. You got to ask, does it reflect our customers' real truth, the real reason why our customers do business with us? And do we even know that? Do we even know the real reason, or is it our assumption? And the question is, do you truly own a unique and relevant niche? Do you own it? And can you describe that? What is it? If you do, that's great. If you can't describe it, you've got some work to do. And ultimately, is this guiding decisions or this plan that's in place, or which we see many times, I'm sure you've seen many times, or is it just a deck of paper, right? Or just sitting on a shelf somewhere gathering dust and no one's looking at it, referring to it, or living it every day. And it's not always about just doing these things, right? You have, as a marketing director, you have permission to challenge it. That's your job, and that's how you should approach it. You should challenge it. And you may find it's great, it's perfect, and it doesn't need to be touched. But if you ask these questions and you go through all the things we just talked about, you may discover something that needs adjustment, or you may discover the entire thing needs to be redone. So challenger brands, and this is absolutely key to challenger brands. Challenger brands are not built on legacy thinking, right? They're not built on looking backwards. Challenger brands are built on having the courage to rethink them, having the courage to reposition them, having the courage to dig deep and look at this differently, have the courage to own a niche in the market that no one else can own, that you can actually own and defend and win. It's about courage, because certain industries are a little more conservative. And if you're in an industry that's conservative, this is really the key. You cannot be a legacy. You can't look back and say, this is how we've always done it. That is the absolute worst thing a challenger brand can say. This is how we've done it. Because I assure you, you've seen this, I've seen this. The industry, a little as a year or two ago, is not the same as it is today. And that goes for almost every industry. What worked, from a marketing and branding and positioning and messaging perspective a couple years ago, probably doesn't work as well now, or it's in a different state. So challenger brands need to always be adjusting and looking and challenging themselves. So just being comfortable with the status quo, I would say, is dangerous. And any new marketer, that's their opportunity to make a mark for themselves, is to go through a process like we just described, to take their company through that and understand what's different, what their customers truly, truly need to hear from them, so you can discover the truth, right? You can become famous for something. And when you get to that point, from a messaging, a positioning perspective, now you will find that everything you do, your social media, your digital marketing, your traditional marketing, your PR, et cetera, all works better, because it's not about spending more money. It's about saying the right thing. If you say the right thing and it connects and resonates with your targeted audience, that's when the magic happens. And that's where we see most challenger brands never hitting their mark, because they don't go through the time and process and exercise to understand what that message truly needs to say and how it truly needs to be positioned in the competitive space.
Any final thoughts on challenger brand marketing?
Well, I would say, again, don't assume you know what your customers need to hear. Don't guess. Don't allow your personal bias to get in the way. And I say that in the utmost respect to everyone who's a marketer, because it's so easy to fall into that trap of I know. I think I know. That is a trap for challenger brands, because you don't want to, that gets you in a position where the only way you win that competition is by outspending your competitors. And challenger brands, and by the way, challenger brands come in all shapes and sizes, Pepsi is a challenger brand to Coke. So it does this. Challenger brands are not small companies. Challenger brands can be any size, any shape, any industry. So, but if you have somebody that's outspending you, you do not want to put yourself in a position where your marketing strategy, your position, your messaging is all about outspending because you're saying the same thing. Your position has to be to own something unique that you know based on the data, based on the research, based on the discovery you performed is actually relevant to your current customers and your new customers. And that messaging is what going to allow you to kind of really break through the clutter and be successful.
Thank you so much for sharing your Challenger brand insights today, John. We're going to provide links to your website, your books, and your contact information in the transcript. Don't forget to subscribe and share, and thanks for joining.
Such a pleasure. Thanks, Kelly.